Hello guys, my name is Ruzzi, and today I'm going to try to teach you guys how to make this effect using just Blender. It's a weird teleport effect and it makes no sense, but I think it's kind of cool. So if you guys want to learn with me, let's go ahead and get started, right? To warn you guys, this is my first English tutorial, so if you guys don't understand anything, you can leave a message below or email me and I'll be happy to answer. And let's open up Blender. Let's delete this light, hit 1, go to the front view, Control Alt 0, bring the camera up a little bit. Let's hit N, background images, add image, movie clip, open. I'll leave a link on the description of this video so you guys can download this footage to follow along with me. Select the clean footage, and this is what we have. Okay, let's just try to align our camera a little better with the scene. So I'm taking the Blender's grid as a reference, and I'm just rotating the camera. I think this is it. Move it on the y-axis a little bit. Okay, I'm also going to turn on the screencast key so you guys can follow along with me. So if you want to know what I'm hitting here, you just have to look at here at the bottom. Okay, let's find the frame where he disappears. This is the frame. Let's place our cube next of our character, tab in to edit, hit Z, and we are going to try to model. Actually, it will be a rough modeling, even worse than rough modeling. Just a overall shape of his body to serve as the particle emitter, so it doesn't have to look perfect because it won't really appear on the render. It will just be our source. I'm just extruding, rotating, scaling. Again, if I do something a little fast, you can go back on the video and check here at the bottom what did I hit. So moving on. Let's do the same for the arms. Create a loop here. Okay, I think that will do. Let's call it emitter 1. Okay, next let's create a ground. So Shift S, cursor center, Shift A, mesh plane, tab in to edit this plane, scale up, scale on the x-axis, then move it to the on the y-axis, scale on the y-axis also. Okay, tab out. Let's save our projects. Oops. There we go. After we saved, we are going to create a particle system for this object. So let's go into the particles tab, hit the plus sign to create one. Let's rename it as PS1, not PSD. For particle system 1, hit OK, and the frame, it will only emit on one frame. It will be this frame. So can assign that here. And now let's see what we have. Okay, so our particles are going right through the ground. So we select the ground, go into the physics panel and select collision. Let's increase this thickness a little bit. The factor of particle friction, decrease the inner soft body enclosure, and decrease the soft body damping. Okay, then we hit play, the particles will fall again. But in the second time that we hit play, it will bounce. It will weirdly bounce. I don't know how to explain that, but I know how to fix. So if we go into the particles tab, select our emitter, and this is the way that I found. I don't know if there's a better way for doing it. So in the cache panel, here on where it says cache step, instead of 10 we put 1. And if we play it, it will play one time, then the next time it plays it will be the same. It will stop that weird bouncing. Okay, so let's save this. We don't want the particles to fall and stop on the ground, so let's start adjusting that. So let's get into this mesh, tab in, select everything, W, subdivide, tab out to go out the edit mode. Let's increase the number of the particles. Let's check volume and random so it better distributes the particles. And let's hit play, see what happens. There's a lot more particles. Let's increase the velocity of the particles. Let's put, I don't know, 8 here maybe. And it's exploding weirdly. Let's put a 4. Okay, that's a little better for now. Don't get desperate yet. Let's start adding forces to our scene now. So Shift A, force field. Let's start with a turbulence, and let's align this turbulence with our particle. Okay, bring it up. Let's increase its strength to 15 maybe, the size to .2. Let's not put a flow, but let's increase the noise. Let's hit play and see what happens. Really not helping at all. So let's select our source, decrease to normal a little bit, maybe 3. Let's also on the field weight decrease how the gravity effects are seen, actually affects our particle system. Let's decrease it to half, 0.5. See how that looks. It's getting better. I think we have to increase the strength of our turbulence field. Let's put 30, I don't know. Okay, that's a little better. So let's create now a wind. Locate it up here. Rotate it. Okay, I think it's in a good position. Increase its strength a little bit. And increase the noise also. Let's see what it does for us. Okay. I think one thing that can help us out is to increase on the velocity tab the random just a little bit. Hit play. Oh yeah. So the only thing I think we're missing is the lifetime of the particles. So I think we can double that. See how it will look. Okay, Control S to save it. Let's let it simulate to the end. Save it. Then we're gonna hit bake. Now every time we play, our timeline, it will not calculate this particle system because it's already baked. So moving on, I'm going to create, I want some particles to get emitted from close of his foot. Kind of a, I don't know, a power wave of particles. Like it can be sparks, whatever, because it really makes no sense, but it will look kind of cool. So let's get into this mesh tab in, select a few of these vertices, hit Shift S cursor to select it, tab out, go back to the camera, and let's create a mesh circle, tab in, hit E for extruding, S for scaling. Okay, select everything, scale down a little bit, tab out of the edit mode, bring it down a little bit. Okay, now let's select, let's give it a particle system tool. So we hit the plus button, let's select the configuration of our first particle system, but let's hit mixing our user here, so we create another one. Let's rename it as a particle system 1.1. Let's save this. I think we lost our bake from the first particle. Let's see. No, we didn't lost. So we didn't lose, actually. Sorry. So let's see what happens here. It's acting a lot weird, and now it's weirdly bouncing. Let's bring it up a little bit, see what happens. We don't want them to stick to the ground like this, so on the physics tab we can increase the drag a little bit and the dump a little bit more, and also the normal. Let's increase it, see what happens. Still not working. It's acting a little weird, right? Okay, I paused the video and turned out that it was kind of a memory issue, and I also changed a few of things here. So this is what I have so far. I decreased the stiffness and decreased it a little bit the particle friction, and on our second particle emitter I increased the normal and increased the random to 1 and decreased the drag and damp. Then this is what we have. I'm still not, I still don't think it's what I want. So on the fill weight, I think I can turn on the wind influence on this particle system. And it's still acting a little weird. Can increase a little bit. Maybe a little bit more. Maybe also increase its mass. Yeah, we're getting there, and I also think there's still much particles, maybe 500, and we can decrease its lifetime. See how that looks. Maybe increase the lifetime a little bit. And also, let's go back to wind. Wait, what's... Okay, let's increase the normal. Yeah, that's pretty cool. Yeah. Okay, now we can save and bake. And our simulation is a little weird, so let's bring it up a little bit. Free or bake. Let's change some settings and get back to normal so it loses if there's anything in the memory. Let's hit play. Okay, I think it has no reason to fail this time, so let's bake it again. Still acting a little weird. Oh, I know why. Our cache step is 10. Okay, let's free our bake. Do the same thing. Run our simulation again. Okay, Control S, bake. Now I think everything is okay. Yes, it is. Now we have to make these particles look like spark, so it will emit light or color. So to do that, we're going to create a object that will be the particle. So let's hit Shift S, cursor to center, then Shift A, icosphere. Let's hit T on the subdivisions. We're gonna hit 1. We don't need all that, and check smooth shading. T again, bring it up. It doesn't matter where it will be. We'll also move it to another layer later. So let's create a new material. Call it Ico, I don't know, Spark material. Give it a orange color. Okay, and on the emit, we put, I don't know, 2. Let's saturate it a little bit. Okay, and let's call it Ico Spark. Control S. Okay, let's move it to another layer, and let's select our particle system. On the particles tab, we go down onto the render, uncheck emitter. So the circle won't render. Then I'm going to select object and our IcoSpark. So let's decrease the size a little bit. This size defines the size of the biggest particle will be the size that we put here. And if we increase this random size, some particles are going to be smaller than this size, but this is the maximum. So let's increase a little bit more, decrease this a little bit more. Let's put, I don't know, .015. Okay, let's see what it looks like. Okay, I think it's fair. So if we render this is what we have. Well, so far the only thing that's rendering right is our particles, or sparks actually. So let's go into the world tab, check ambient occlusion, then hit multiply, check environment lighting, indirect lighting, see the difference. Okay, then we don't want the first particle system to look like this poor smoke. This, I don't know, it's kind of a bunch of blurred white dots, and that's not what we want. And we also don't want this mesh to render, and also the floor, we just want a shadow on the floor. So let's select the first particle system, and on the render tab let's check emitter, and on the floor let's give it a material. Let's call it floor. Floor. Down into the shadows tab, let's check shadows only, and now if we render, okay. So we need to set up which object will be the will serve as a particle for the first particle system. So let's create another icosphere. Shift A, icosphere, check smooth. Okay, let's call it particle. Actually, ico particle 1. So we know what it will be. Okay. Next thing, we're going to go here on the background images, and let's make this video appears on the front, and let's increase its opacity to 100% so we can see the actual colors of the video. And right on this frame, let's create a new material for the icosphere we just created, and it will be ico particle mat 1, and let's pick a color of his skin. On the specular, let's put a, I don't know, pinkish color, make it look a little bit more like a skin. Okay, let's bring it to the back. Let's duplicate this icosphere, and also let's hit single user for this material so it creates another material. Then rename it as A2. Bring the clip for the front to the front. Let's pick another color of his skin just to give a little bit of randomness. Okay, that will be good. Then back, let's duplicate this icosphere. Now we want a color from his shirt. It will be two colors, the black of his shirt and the white. So with this icosphere selected, we create another material based on the last one. And 3, bring our footage to the front. Select a black color from this shirt, from his shirt. Give it a grayish color on the specular, and actually decrease the specular like this. Hit save, bring it back, duplicate this icosphere, create another material, bring our footage to the front again. Let's pick now a white color from his shirt. Let's increase a little bit this white. Okay, then the last one will be one for his pants. So create another material. Okay, bring our clip to the front, select color of his pants, blue. Doesn't need to be that dark, I think, and not that white. Okay, give it a bluish color. Okay, that's good for me. Let's get back to the standard definitions. Oops. Control S. Let's select all these icospheres, hit Control G. So we create a group, select one of them, go into the Object tab, and in the Groups tab section, actually we can rename it as a Particles or PS1 group or a PlayStation 1 group. Kidding, just kidding. Okay, select everything and put it into another layer. Okay, now you go to a frame where it's, I don't know, convenient. Select our first emitter of particles, go into the render tab, actually the particles tab, then the render tab, and select group and our PlayStation 1 group. kidding again, just PS1. Okay, then let's define its size. It's okay for me. Now if we hit render F12, okay, that is kind of cool. Let's bring it to the first layer where it emits. I know there's colors of his shirt appearing on the head, but it will not be a problem because everything will happen so fast and we don't want to be that detailed, at least not on this tutorial. So let's go. Let's save it. Okay, render again. Okay, so I think it will need a bit of compositing, but I'm going to do this the easier way. We have to compose it, what we created here, with our footage. We can do that by going into the compositor, on the Blender's compositor, and do everything here. But I think it is a little bit more complicated, so I'm going to do only the basics in here, and then I'm going to jump to our VSA, or Blender sequence editor. So let's go back to the default. Okay, so we have to separate these things into layers. So let's just come here in the shading tab and check transparent. So when we render, our background is not a solid gray, and it has now transparent information. Let's get full res here. 24, it's okay. Control S. Let's check 16 bits. Take off the compression. Okay, layers. Let's call this all. Let's create another one. Let's call this PS1. I'm just selecting to see the right name. This circle, we are going to rename it as a PS1.1. Okay, then back into the layers tab. Our PS1 is our first emitter, so the first emitter will be this layer. And let's create the PS2. Oops, PS1.1, and it will be this layer. So let's move these to the second layer and check the second layer. Okay, and this ground, I want it to be, let's see if the shadows are appearing right. Not so much, I think. So let's create a sun. Bring it up a little bit. It was midday when we shoot it, so it will be close to this. Well, I think the particles are too small for the shadows to appear, so it won't make any difference for us now. So let's move on. Let's move the sun here. And on the PS1, let's check also this layer. That will be the sun layer, and also the camera layer. Actually, for the camera, it doesn't matter, but let's do it this way. In the PS1, also check the layer of the sun. Okay, let's get this ground. I don't know. We can leave it there. It doesn't matter. Let's go into the compositing section of Blender. Let's make some room here. Right. Let's render. Oops. Let's check use nodes and create input render layer and the output composite, and link one, the first one on the last one. Let's render. So far This is what we have. Let's separate things so we can just treat them individually. So let's change this render layer will be our particle system 1. Let's duplicate this, and this render layer will be our particle system 1.1. Let's create a color alpha over, put it right over here. Okay, then we have the same thing, but I can do specific things to specific layers. One example of that, I can blur the sparks. See that? But now it won't look like a spark, but it will in a minute. So let's delete this blur. Okay, let's Control S. We need these particles to have motion blur. Motion blur is the magic of this effect. So on the layers tab, on the PS1, let's go into the passes and check vector, and the same thing we're gonna do to the PS1 and select vector. Okay, now we can go into the filter, vector blur, put right here in the middle, and link the Z into the Z and the speed into the speed. 100 samples, and maybe for start 1 to blur will be good. Let's copy this and plug in. Actually, to hide, I'm just hitting H, okay? And to create, I just hit it Shift A. So now if we render, this is what we have. Our spark does not have the amount of motion blur we want, but that is because we're on the wrong frame. This frame, they're slow already, so this frame should have a lot more motion blur. So let's render and see that. Okay, so I think we are almost ready to render this. So to do that, actually, let's make this spark look a little bit more like a spark. So let's render again. Okay. Let's duplicate this alpha over, put it right over here, and create a filter blur, and blur, I don't know, 5 pixels. Take this final here and put right over here. Let's see the difference. Okay, there's a little bit of glow now. So let's change this blur and see what it does. See if it gets better. Yeah, it got better a little bit. It's a little bit more shining. I think we are ready to render this. So we can just go here into the output tab and set a destination for our PNG sequence. This is one way to do this. I'm going to create my, so you guys please be organized too. Render particles render 1. Okay. Format will be PNG. RGBA, so we keeps the alpha information. and that's it. The other way to do this is to create a output, file output, then you bring it right over here and you select what you'll do. Why does there? Why is that for? Sometimes we don't want to composite on Blender. I like to composite on Blender because I have too much control. Actually, so much control than compositing it in other softwares like After Effects. But sometimes you just need a sequence and the separate sequences. Maybe, I don't know, your boss or your director ask you the separate layers of the first particle and the second particle system. So to do that, we just create an output, file output. We can bring these output nodes, put right over here and save as a particle 1. The same thing, we can duplicate this one, get these exit, put right over here and save as particle system 2, and then Blender will save for us. But I don't really need this right now. Maybe I'll do it. Let's do this. Let's call it Sparks render 1. Okay, and on this one, let's call it just particles, or PS1 R1. Okay, save it. Okay, so we're gonna have 3 outputs. We will have our first particle system, or sparks, and both of them composite. So I'm render and then I will render and then I come back. Okay. Okay, I'm back. It just finished rendering. I'm going to the video sequence editor, and on the first frame I'm going to hit Shift A and image. I'm going to my sequence folder, select everything, add image strip, then I'm going to move it up two times. So I'm going to hit G, Y, and 2 enter. Then now I'm going to hit Shift A, movie. I'm going to pick my clean footage. Okay, so the first one that we added, we can check it as a alpha over. If we don't check alpha over, it won't really show. By default, it is cross, so it does not show what is beneath, what is below. So we have to check alpha over or other blend mode. That depends on what you want. So in my case, it will be alpha over, and I'm also going to import the PS1 sequence. Okay. Also check alpha over and move it 1 frame to the right. Okay. Let's refresh the sequencer and I'm going to load. So it's taking too long to load, so I'm going to make a quick preview here. So I'm gonna pause the recording and get back when it's finished, so we can see what we have so far. And this is it. I think the particles are starting to emit a little late, so we can fix that moving these particles maybe 1 frame to the left. Let's see. Let's find the frame where it disappears. Okay. Let's move them. So G -1. Refresh sequencer. This is what we have. And okay, next we can create a adjustment layer, put it above everything, on top of everything, and with this selected we can add a strip curves modifier, and let's just give a basic color correction to everything. Okay, let's see. I'm thinking about a, I don't know, maybe a greenish style, like that, dark greenish style, not that much green, pretty much. Yeah, if we want, we can, I don't know, duplicate some of these particles and make it appear a little more. And let's say we can duplicate this one, so Shift G, then move it right over. Then we can take the adjustment layer G, Y2, and this G, Y minus 1, and also it is already alpha over, so we can refresh the sequencer, see what we got. If you guys want to see the difference, you just have to uncheck the eye here and then refresh the sequencer. Okay, you can also do that for the particles. So it will be this one. So GY2. Let's move this down. GY minus 1. GY minus 1. You can duplicate this one right here. Refresh sequence. You can also, if we want, color correct this one, or maybe just change this blend mode, its blend mode to add. It will be more intense, the particles. You can see the difference of over and add. I think it will be cool. So yeah, I'm going to do a quick render and skip that so you don't have to wait, and I will come back. Okay, so this is the final result of the last render. So on the original example, on the beginning of this tutorial, I showed you this video. It has this kind of reverse particle system going on when he teleports back. I basically used the same, I followed the same steps that I teach you today, and I aligned to the right frame. All this process of creating this mesh, I did it again, but based on the frame that he gets back right here. So it will be all that process again, like creating the cube, putting on the spot, and editing and making the rough modeling to approximate this shape of the character from the character, and then making this mesh have a particle system and setting up the particle system and setting up which mesh will be the particles and everything. It was basically the same. and I also put it a wind in the same direction. But to do that effect, to cause the impression that it's a reverse particle system on the video sequence editor, you can just check backwards on the sequence that you export and import back. You can just check backward and align with the right frame where it gets back, so when you render it will look like this. This is actually a sequence that I ordered to play backwards, so it happens like this. Then I aligned with the right frame where he gets back, and this is what we get. And the particles, I just followed the same steps of our particles that we did today. So I hope you guys enjoyed the tutorial, and I also hope it was helpful. If you guys have any questions, you can leave a message below or email me. I'll be happy to answer. And that's it. Thanks for watching. I'll leave some links on the description if you guys want to see some of my videos, or I don't know, wait for more tutorials. Please subscribe and check out my main channel. And this is it. Thanks for watching. Bye.